Welcome. Figuring out all the buttons. I think this is set to go. Okay, thanks for coming to the first ever Facebook Live for Gizmo. Hi Amanda, thanks for coming. Okay, so I think some of you who said you were coming may not be familiar with how a Facebook Live works. So at the bottom, you should see all the little icons for the heart if you love something, the thumbs up if you like something. Go ahead and click. Thanks, Amanda. You found the smiley face. Excellent. Okay, so first ever Facebook Live. I have notes. I am going to try to remember to look at the camera lens, and hopefully others will join us and we will get this working. So Amanda, since you're on top of it already, can you tell me if the lighting's good, the sound's good, can you hear everything? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear this? Because I'd hate to talk for a half hour and nobody can hear me. That would be sad. Okay, don't want to have dead time. I'm going to assume maybe somebody's distracted. Okay, there's also a way apparently to invite other people to join us. Yep, it's all good. Thank you. Okay, I feel better now. I can continue with confidence. Okay, so my plan, hi Jane. The plan for the next half hour or so is to answer questions about service dogs. And if you have any questions about why is that dog in here, I'd love to talk about that. And, oh, Amanda, you make me feel better. Thank you. That's why you're my daughter-in-law, right? Yeah, so for those who don't know me, if you're tuning in and you just wandered here by accident, my name is Catherine McClatchy. I have been partnered with Gizmo, my service dog, for over 6 years, and he provides medical alert as well as mobility stability for me. And that is a life changer. So in the last 7 years, as we started researching and realizing how difficult it is to get a service dog and all the hoops you have to jump through in training the dog and getting the dog able to do the tasks you need it to mitigate your disability, we have encountered a lot of people who are very confused about service dogs, who have a lot of questions about service dogs, who don't understand the difference in various types of working dogs. So we wanted to answer those questions. So that's why I wrote the book, Why Is That Dog in Here? It answers a lot of those questions, but I think there's additional questions that maybe we haven't addressed, so I thought this would be a good forum to do that with. So let's see, we have Kim here, we have Steve here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And one of the things I'd ask you to do is, if you will, just to make sure everything's working and I see all the comments, if you are a proud pet owner, would you go ahead and type a comment with your pet's name, breed, and age? Pet, breed, name, and age. And let's see who's all represented. And then if you happen to have a service dog also, if you would hit the heart button and let me know if I have anyone watching who has a service dog, because that'll, help as I'm answering your questions. Okay, so while you're doing that, one of the first questions that was actually sent to me by email, I want to go ahead and address right away. And apparently there is a PSA going out and about talking about a thanks Jane, talking about what to do if a service dog comes up to you without its handler. And the PSA is all color coded, and it talks about somebody who had a dog come up to them and was kind of shooing it away and didn't realize that it meant the handler was in crisis. So I want to address that one. It's not a fake news story. It's not a thing that you don't need to ignore. It's a valid thing. One of Gizmo's tasks, if I become discombobulated or unconscious or something happens that he can no longer help me, he is trained to go find a human, and this has saved my life on 3 separate occasions. So the first thing you need to know is, if you see a service dog without a handler, assume the dog is trying to get help. The dog is not a runaway, probably, otherwise it wouldn't be in harness. So if the dog looks like he knows where he's going and he's on a mission, let him accomplish his mission. If he's coming to you for help, look at the tags on his harness. And I went ahead and pulled Gizmo's harness. I'm going to back this up so you can see it, I hope. So this is Gizmo's harness, and on it I have tags. Oh, that apparently fell off. So one of the tags, or did I take it off to show you? I don't remember. One of the tags that I had on it said, if you see me without my handler, tell me to find Catherine. And that lets you know the command, find Catherine. Once you tell Gizmo that, he will come directly to me and lead you, and you can follow him to me. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, if you don't see any tag or instructions, then what you need to do is go through their vest. So some dogs have just the harness alone, and it's like this with nothing on it. Gizmo's harness is 5 years old, so it's a little dirty. But the basic harness is like this, and then I also have the cape on it, and the cape has zippered pouches on each side. And I hope you can see this all right. So in one zipper pocket, I keep the obvious, like pick bags and treats and an extra screw for his harness. But the other side has emergency information. So in this, I keep a business card for his trainer, I keep his ID, I keep in case of emergency, and I also keep my medical information and emergency information. So it's a printed out computer form that basically shows my medical history on one side, and then it has all my doctor's contact information, as well as my husband and son's phone numbers and how to get a hold of them in case of emergency. This is the procedure you need to do. So if you ever see a service dog without its handler, please check his harness. That's the first thing you need to do, and hopefully that will now you know, and you can teach other people that. It's really quite important. The other thing that the harness a lot of times has messages, like this one. This may be reversed. I don't know if you see this right, but it says, service dog, do not distract, do not separate from handler. So if I was unconscious and he was with me, EMTs know that they need to keep a service dog with his human. The service dog can actually tell what the medical emergency is probably before they hook up the blood pressure cuff or whatever diagnostic tools they use. So you want to check that and make sure that the service dog stays with. And then do not distract is the biggest thing, because that's the thing that we have the most trouble with when we're out and about. So welcome. We have some new people. Thanks, Jane. I'm glad that's helpful. Welcome, Jerry. Welcome, Steve. So questions from you. Do you have questions for me? I hope you do. Give me a second. I'm trying to read. Yeah, might have to put on the cheaters. So, okay. The other thing that I was hoping maybe you could tell me is, if you know somebody that has a service dog, would you hit the heart emoji? You see where the buttons are? Hit the heart, and let's see how many people out there know somebody that has a service dog. And I should see a lot of them, because if you know me, you know somebody who has a service dog. Or maybe you don't know where the heart emoji is. Okay. So another question, there we go, we got one. Another question, thank you, is what's your dog's name? That's almost as common. It's probably number 2, close behind, why is that dog in here? Jane, I'm going to answer this and then I'll get to that. So what's your service dog's name is a question that most people ask, and I think it's predominantly in making conversation, and they're wanting to make small talk, and it's obvious there's a dog in the room, let's talk about the dog. But a lot of times I'm telling you, and people who are out and about with me know, I'm going to lie, and I'm going to say Fred. Most of the time he's Fred. Sometimes he's Butler, sometimes he's Butch. You know, I come up with a different name every time. And if I'm out with a friend, I usually allow my friend to pick the name. So whomever I'm out running about with that day may pick a name for him. And the reason is service dogs' names are tied to their commands. So instead of teaching service dogs the same common commands that most people teach their pets, a lot of times they have to learn to ignore other people, so their name is the beginning step of their command. So I don't need to say come, I just say Gizmo, and he knows to come. And I'm saying that softly because he's sleeping on the other side of the room. When people ask his name, if we're out and about and then all of a sudden a lot of people are going, hey Gizmo, and greeting him, then he's alert and waiting for the rest of the command. And when the rest of the command doesn't come, then he doesn't know what to do with himself, and then I have to talk him down. Okay, free dog. So most service dog providers have their own command system that may not match any others. So instead of as a release command for my dog, I say free dog, and he knows then he can go play, and he's loose at the park, or you know, if we're at somebody's house and there's other dogs, he knows then that he can play with them. A lot of service dog handlers train their dogs in other languages, so that's another way to keep people, because you don't realize how often you use common words in conversation. So one of the release commands that we were given originally was okay. Every time I said okay, Gizmo thought he could go play. Well, when you're standing and talking to somebody, you don't realize how many times you say okay, and so he was constantly like, oh, I can go now, it's time to play. So we had to change that to free dog, and now he knows okay means nothing. Same like good boy. Everybody, everywhere we go, oh, what a good boy. Well, that means nothing now because it's been used so much. So when Gizmo does the right thing for me, I say thank you. He knows if I say thank you that he's done a good job, and he's might likely get a treat. And if I say yes with emphasis, he knows he's getting a treat. And I never say no to him. It's always a it's a sound that I make, so he knows. If somebody else says no to him, he's just going to look at you confused. He has no clue. And Gizmo has over 80 commands that he is responsible for, so that's really important that a number of people aren't using the same words. Okay, let me go back and look at Jane's question. How does the dog communicate with EMTs? Okay, so we did an EMT training class with a friend of mine. Her husband's he's recently retired, but he was a captain of 42 years with the Dallas Fire and Rescue Department. And we did training for his house, as well as they helped familiarize Gizmo when he was young with EMT practices and so forth. So if there's an emergency, he has in his vest the list of my medical issues that they need to be aware of, and he knows to go up to somebody in uniform. So we've practiced this out and about. When we're at the state fair, you know, there's always Dallas police officers, so we always ask, if you have a moment, could you meet my dog? And we've had pictures taken with the Dallas Area Rapid Transit. That's the local DART our bus system, with the DART enforcement. He's had pictures taken with firemen. He's had pictures taken with military people. And all of that is part of his training to make him familiar with the smells and uniforms. And he knows if I'm in trouble, that's who he's going to look for first. If he can't find somebody in uniform who smells that way, and you ask what they're smelling, it's the gunpowder on the police officers, because they carry a loaded weapon. So he smells out the gunpowder and he knows to seek that out. And then the secondly, EMTs and firemen, they smell like smoke, and he can, even though they've showered, that's kind of in them, so he smells that and he knows to look for that. So he will go directly to those folks first, and then he will, wait until they either dig through his pockets in his vest, or he will lead them back to me. So it's not like he talks to them. That would be really, really convenient. But he does know to stand quietly and wait and be persistent, and he will nudge them if they don't respond to him. So that was one of the things that we discovered when we were working with the Dallas Fire Department, is a lot of the paramedics and firefighters didn't know to dig through his vest pockets. They also were surprised to learn that on a medical alert bracelet, see, I don't know if you can see that, my medical alert bracelet, it's printed on both sides. So if you ever see somebody with a service dog that's gone down, make sure you look not only that they're wearing a medical alert bracelet, but check the back side. On the back side of mine is actually getting worn down, but it says in case of emergency, call, and it's my husband's cell phone number, and it also says look for medical information in the dog's vest. So that's another way that we communicate with EMTs if I'm unable to communicate. Okay, let's see, there was another question. Okay. And Kim, what can we do to help people understand that service dogs are different? Right? Oh, thank you. What can we do to help people understand that service dogs are different from regular dogs? Okay, so service dogs are working dogs, and they are not pets. And that is the hardest thing to communicate, especially, I have to be careful how I say this, and I hope you'll understand when I say that dog lovers are actually the bane of my existence, because they all want to cuddle and pet and reward him and talk about him and all of that. And as much as I love talking about my service dogs, sometimes you just want to get in, get your groceries, and get home. Or sometimes I'm sick and I'm fighting that, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking. So the thing is, what can you do to teach people that service dogs are different? Make sure people understand how much they are trained. Uneducated dog lovers, good. I need to use that better. So the training is what separates the dog from a pet. And I understand a lot of pets are very well trained, but he is specifically trained to mitigate my disability. So after he's gone through the basic obedience that most good pets go through, he's then taught what to do if he smells a certain scent on me. He's taught how to go get help if I'm down. He's taught how to counterbalance if I start weeble wobbling when I'm walking. He'll pull the other way or push the other way. He knows when I'm feeling closed in and sick to my stomach to lead me to an outside fresh air source. So that way, sometimes it's like the room's closing in on me and I can't see to get myself out of some place, and I can give him a command and he'll take me directly outside, and that way, hopefully I don't throw up on somebody's shoes. I can find a bush or a garbage can, or sometimes just the fresh air will revive me. So it's the training that makes a service dog, not the dog's innate abilities. So every dog, and I'm sure everybody who has pets, your pet knows when you're feeling bad. Your pet knows when you want comfort. Your pet knows how to cheer you up and when to jump on your lap or whatever. These are things dogs do because they're so emotionally connected and they're so empathetic. So they know these things, and most dogs do this, but the difference between a really good pet that is bonded with his human and a service dog is what that dog's going to do with that information after he figures it out. So when Gizmo smells that I'm about to have a neurological attack, he knows that he needs to alert me to it. It's not just come sit and snuggle. He needs to give me a specific alert so I know to take my meds. And it's really a challenge that I've had learning to obey my dog. So that's a big deal. Gizmo knows when I'm starting to have a vertigo episode, even before I know that the room's starting to spin. I can be sitting and not moving, so everything's fine. And as soon as I stand up, it's like I'm on a tilt-a-whirl ride. Gizmo will block me to where I can't stand up. He knows before I do that I'm going to have a vertigo episode. So that's what makes a service dog different from a pet. And if you can help us get out the message that all pets are fabulous and they all have a purpose and a job, but a service dog is trained to mitigate an individual's specific disability. That's the legal definition as well as the most succinct working definition. Okay, hopefully that answered that question. Good questions. Okay, let's see. Amanda asked, I gotta put my glasses on again, sorry. What age do service dogs start, quote unquote, working, or does it just depend on the dog when they get done training? Good question. Okay, so service dogs go through their basic puppy raising, and I had to do my own puppy raising because my medical situation is such that we couldn't find an agency that would work with us, because sometimes I need a seeing eye dog, sometimes I need a mobility dog, sometimes I need a medical alert dog. So he was taught basic obedience. He was taught new situations and how to respond appropriately to those situations. For example, during his puppy raising, he had to have 3 new experiences every week. Every week, 3 new experiences. And that's all fine and good for the first month or so, but by the time we're at 16 months old, it's like, holy cow, how do we give him another experience? Because we've done like everything. So he's been on buses, planes, trains, airplanes, cars. Those were all separate individual experiences. He's visited firehouses, police stations. He has gone to schools. He's gone to hospitals. He's gone to doctor's offices. He's gone in all the different like glass elevators and hotels and all these different things. So so all of that takes time. So it takes about 2 years to fully train a service dog. And the immediate is basic obedience and temperament testing. You'd probably know in the first 6 weeks, or 6 months, excuse me, within the first 6 months of continued evaluation, whether or not that dog's even needs to be trained to be a service dog if he has a temperament. So if a dog shows any signs of aggression, any signs of distractibility, any signs of fearfulness or skittishness around certain people or objects, then the dog is not cut out for service. And that comes into play in a lot of different ways. For example, when we're at a restaurant and the wait staff drops a tray of dishes and you hear a glass crashing down, he can't jump, he can't react, he can't growl in fear or tuck tail and run. He has to continue doing his job. He knows that I have an issue with lights, so he is programmed to go on point when he hears a police siren or emergency vehicle siren, because the lights are probably on too, and he'll point the direction he hears it, and then I can look and find a place to hide my eyes so I don't see the lights. So all those task things, those are specific tasks, that takes longer. So 2 years to be fully trained, to pass all his tests, and to make sure he doesn't wash out of the program. But he starts doing little things along the way, but you just can't rely on him to be fully trained until at least 2 years of specific training. Not 2 years of age, 2 years of specific training. Okay, Gail, glad you're enjoying it. Thank you for joining us. I had another question from Steve. Okay, the difference between emotional support and service dogs. This came up again this week. And so an emotional support dog is a very useful job, and I'm so glad we have emotional support dogs, but they are not given the same legal protection, nor do they have the same training that an actual service dog has. So an emotional support dog is basically a pet who makes you feel better. So if you have a medical issue or maybe a psychiatric issue or an emotional issue, and being around this dog makes you feel better, that dog can be classified as an emotional support dog. The only protections for an emotional support dog is as far as housing and airplanes. That's it. Those dogs do not have the right to go in restaurants or stores or hospitals or public transportation. So an emotional support dog in an apartment setting or a lease setting where no dogs are allowed, or a hotel where no dogs are allowed, if you have a doctor's note saying that this is an emotional support dog, then they have to allow that dog to live with you without upping your rent or charging you additional fees. Because of that, a lot of people are faking that their dog is an emotional support dog just so they don't have to pay the extra rent or deposits, and that's really causing a problem in the working dog community. So that's something that I have a feeling we're going to see discussed and maybe legislated in the near future. So that's one of the things. Also, as far as flying, I know it's been in the news a lot about people trying to bring their peacock on a plane or something. An emotional support animal, technically, legally, is still any animal. Assistance dog is a dog. It is not a cat, snake, rabbit, anything else. It is a dog. There is only one exception, and that is for some forms of mobility issues. You may substitute a miniature horse. The miniature horse is not as practical in a lot of sense, but for the people who need them, they're quite magnificent. So miniature horses have been used as service animals, but that's a rare exception, and there's different legalities with that. So if you know somebody that's bringing their dog into a restaurant and saying, oh yeah, he's my emotional support animal, that's not legal. It's not acceptable, and we have had Gizmo attacked by one of these quote-unquote emotional support dogs that was brought into a restaurant, because those dogs are not trained the way service dogs are. They're not trained for that kind of stressful interactions and just random things that happen when you're out and about in public. Okay, I gotta see what else. Emotional support. So how is the distinction made to know when a pet can move into the realm of a service dog? Do they test as puppies? Yes. So if you want to consider having your pet checked, there's different organizations or dog behaviorists that specialize in checking if the dog has the temperament for that. This needs to be a dog that is not, it's like the perfect dog. And honestly, it's so hard because dogs that are bred for service, over 65% of them wash out before 6 months of age. And dogs that are found in rescue situations, over 80% of them wash out before they finish training. So it's really a small number of dogs that are able to go into service. So if you think your pet is one of those, number one, you have to be disabled to have a service dog. So if you're not disabled, it doesn't matter how fabulous your pet is, it cannot be your service dog. Now, if you want to train it for somebody else, that's an amazing thing, and rock on, go do it. But if your dog has the temperament, it's not too fearful, it's not too aggressive, it's not too assertive, it's not too submissive, it's curious but not distractingly so, and it's obedient, and it loves to serve, and it is never nervous or fidgety or fearful, go ahead and have it tested. So here's the thing though with pets. So we started considering having a service dog after my Third stroke. We had a healer as a pet. Bailey was about 8 years old at that point, and Bailey could tell I had a migraine coming on, and her demeanor changed, and we knew there was something there, and it gave me enough heads up that I could do something about it. And she was right pretty much 100% of the time. But Bailey was aggressive to other dogs, and she was fearful of storms, and she didn't like loud noises, and she was very possessive of her people. So there was no way we could take her out into public. It wasn't an option, even though she would have been perfect for me to handle my disability. She could not be taken out in public and trusted, so that wasn't an option. But if you think your dog meets all those criteria, have it tested, but then keep in mind it takes 2 years to fully train the dog for service. So if by the time you realize that your pet is 4 years old, it's going to take another 2 years for service. The dog will then be 6 years old, and assuming that they're healthy and happy in their job, they retire at 10. So you'd only get 4 years of service out of the dog, and you invested 2 years of your life and close to $20,000 in training that dog. The numbers don't add up, and it's not really cost effective, I would say. And that sounds very business-like, and I know we love our animals, and animals bring out the emotional side of us, but the fact is, if you don't start them as a puppy, you may not get the amount of service you need. Now, again, it's always a gamble, because even the best of service dogs, if they're attacked, they may become so fearful they can't do their job anymore. We almost had that situation with Gizmo. He was attacked so badly that he tucked his tail and quivered anytime he heard or smelled another dog for almost a month. I couldn't leave the apartment because my service dog was out of commission. So there's always a chance of your dog getting sick and you not being able to, when he has a sick day, I can't go anywhere because I depend on him for my safety. So that's always something to consider as well. So think about that. If you have an older pet that you think might be a perfect service dog, I'd also encourage you to think about therapy work. Therapy work does not take as long to get them trained and certified, and they do another phenomenal service. Those dogs are invited into places like hospitals and libraries and so forth, and they can do they basically just love on people in nursing homes, and love on people in jails, and love on people in psych hospitals, and they do amazing things. I have one friend, her dog is a therapy dog and works with the DFW airport and TSA, and they go in, they get called in when the weather's going to be bad and they know they're going to have a lot of layovers and a lot of cranky and stressed out travelers. They call in the therapy dogs to come, and they put them in silly hats and costumes and say pet me, and they try to provide a little therapy and a little love on the tarmac there or at the gate. So that's the difference with the therapy dogs. Let's see, is it okay, let me go back. Great to hear about the lights. I'm sorry, I'm catching up. So, okay, while I'm catching up, here's what I want you to do. Can you comment on what you think is something that I could do to help people understand more about working dogs and service dogs? Think on that a minute, and I'm going to read comments real quick. Got that. Okay, how can Gizmo recognize you're about to have an episode before you do? That's something that I have asked every trainer we have worked with, and the consensus is probably it's a scent change in my body chemistry. They believe that dogs can be trained to detect smells. So the easiest, well, we know they can detect smells, but to be trained. So the easiest one to train for is the diabetic alert dogs, because that's a very obvious smell, and they can compare that with a glucose monitor. So they can teach the dog to alert if the blood sugar drops too low, and then they can immediately know, looking at the glucose monitor, if the dog's right or not, and reward them immediately. They also can train them to tell if the blood level's too high or the glucose level's too high, and then check it and reward them immediately. The next harder one is the epilepsy alert dogs, or seizure alert dogs. You can have seizures from another number of reasons, but again, they think that's scent. The hardest is the migraine alert dogs. And apparently whatever that chemical smell is so faint that it's so very hard for them to smell, that they're finding you really need a solid sniffing dog, like hunting dogs, like retrievers. You know, they rely on their nose to be able to do that. There's also some discussion in my situation that because Gizmo's focused on me 24/7, he knows the difference in my speech patterns, he knows the difference in my sleeping patterns, and he knows the difference in my gait. So he knows if I'm, even before I realize maybe that I'm shuffling my feet, or even before I realize that I've stopped breathing in my sleep, he knows that, and he can alert me before I get in trouble. So that's one of the things he does for me. Okay. Can any breed of dog be a service dog? Pretty much. And I say there's a few breeds that there's always exceptions to every rule, of course, but there's a few breeds that are very independently minded. So shepherds don't always make good service dogs because they like working alone. They have found that terriers do not make great service dogs because terriers like working independently and chasing their own smells and interests. So there's some breeds that just personality-wise don't lead themselves to be good service dogs. They're having a lot of success using small dogs for diabetic alert, and the advantage is small dogs are more cost effective. Again, it's the business side of it. So small dogs live longer, they cost less to feed, and so you get more bang for the buck for the time and the money spent on training. And the little dogs do a great job with hearing alert dogs because you want a dog that's happy to run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So hearing alert dogs, they use small dogs. Diabetes dogs, they use small dogs. For people that have mobility and stability issues, of course, you need a larger dog. The rule of thumb is the dog needs to weigh at least a third of what the human weighs, and it needs to be half as tall as the human. So Gizmo was bred for me because we knew mobility, stability, and we assumed that I was going to be in a wheelchair before now, so he was also trained to pull a wheelchair and to work around a walker because I was on a walker when I actually got Gizmo. So that's it. The breed is dependent on the job that needs to be done. So other than some temperamental things, there's a lot of great jobs for pretty much any dog. I hope I don't skip any comments. Is it possible to have a pet dog and a service dog in the same home? Oh, Jane, that's a great question. So we actually were turned down by 2 agencies when we started looking for a service dog because they would not place a service dog in a home with a pet dog. And we had Bailey at the time, and she was too old and too set in her ways to rehome. And then we had so the agency that we did go with was more of a training agency than they didn't train the dog and they give it to you. They worked with me to train the dog. They kind of trained me to train the dog and supervised it. So Shadows for Life took the attitude that as long as I kept the dogs separate, they would be okay with having a pet and a service dog in the same home. So when I was working with Gizmo, Bailey had to be outside in the yard. When I was playing with Bailey or she was home, Gizmo had to be crated in the house. They could not interact until after he was about, oh gosh, I don't think they were ever left alone until Gizmo was almost 2 years old. So we take them out in the yard a little bit to play, you know, just to get the wiggles out, because nobody can exercise a dog like another dog. But as a rule, they were not to be alone together. And it was just because you don't want one learning bad habits from the other. Or in the case of an older dog, the older dog will try to school and teach the younger dog, and the younger dog will become submissive to the older dog or the more alpha dog in the group. So Bailey was very much one who wanted to have her way, and she had no problem snapping at Gizmo and schooling him. And so we couldn't have that because Gizmo had a different purpose than Bailey. So I think the answer to your question, Jane, is it possible to have a pet dog and a service dog? Yes, but you need to be very careful that one doesn't ruin the other, and you also need to understand that you treat them differently. I can't treat Gizmo like a pet, and I couldn't treat Bailey like a service dog, so that made the change. Okay, Kim, I think you're doing it right. Oh, yay, I'm glad, Kim, you said you learned a lot from Gizmo's page. So yeah, let me put a quick commercial out for those watching. Gizmo has his own Facebook page, and we started that when we started the fundraising effort. So I had just been new to Facebook at the time, and we had friends. I had had 5 strokes, and a lot of friends wanted to keep up with my recovery and rehab and what we needed and how they could help, and we were so blessed with that. And then when we started looking for the service dog and doing the fundraising, we had a large group of friends that wanted to know every bitty detail, you know, of the search, of the fundraising, of the training. They wanted to know all about the new puppy. And then we had another group of friends that were like, enough with the dog already. You know, we want to know about you, but enough with the dog. So we decided to create Gizmo's own Facebook page. And when he was little and doing those new experiences, it was also a way to document it, so his handler, his trainer, excuse me, could watch and see what we were doing and offer suggestions. And we put some videos up, and we put a lot of pictures up. So his first airplane ride, there's pictures on his Facebook page. And if you're not already on it, you can go to Gizmo. I think it's Gizmo_the_SD. Or you can Google Gizmo Catherine Service Dog, and you'll find it there. So, and then recently, when we started working on the book, Why Is That Dog in Here?, we created an Instagram account for Gizmo. So we've been doing Instagram under Gizmo's name, and that I know is at Gizmo_the_SD. SD for service dog. So if you're interested in following his social media, you can do it that way. Okay. Oh, great idea, Jane, about the videos. Oh, my mom's learning new stuff. That makes me happy. Makes sense, makes sense. Can never get enough of the dog. Thank you, Kim. You've been so supportive. Okay, so I was hoping we would go 30 minutes, and I guess like most of us, we can talk about the dog all day long. So I know y'all want to see him. Let me just do a quick commercial if you don't mind. So for those of you that are not familiar, I have written a book about service dogs, specifically Life and Times of Gizmo, and the different experiences we've had over the last 6 years that we've been partnered. So the title is Why Is That Dog in Here? And it's broken out into chapters. Why is that dog in the hospital? Why is that dog in public transportation? Why is that dog in the restaurant? And different experiences and ways that he has saved the day for me, and ways people have reacted, some positive, some negative. And I put an excerpt up on my blog last week about an issue we had on a bus, and it's creative nonfiction. So I tried to write it in a creative manner, but it's all nonfiction, so it's very true to life. Everything happened. You know, I hope it's educational and entertaining and encouraging. So if you're interested in Why Is That Dog in Here, we have a Kickstarter fund going right now, and if you are interested in supporting the Kickstarter, there is information on how to do that on Gizmo's page, as well as on our our Instagram and Twitter and my Facebook page as well. And oh, Kim Butler just added the link, so you can copy it from that. Why is that dog in here on the Kickstarter? So that's a great thing. And then the other thing I wanted to say is my website has links to everything. If you go to katherinemcclatchy.com, you will find links to all of my social media, all Gizmo's social media. There's blog posts in there for the last, we just had our 6-year anniversary of that website. So for 6 years, I've been doing blog posts on different issues of service dog related, as well as invisible disabilities and chronic illnesses and some other issues that I'm interested in advocating for. And 2 of my strokes, I lost the ability to speak, and I had to go through speech therapy. And I was very determined after watching a number of people struggle to regain their speech, many never did, and learning that older stroke patients did not get the same amount of rehab and the same amount of success out of their rehab in a lot of cases. So I kind of vowed to speak up for folks that couldn't speak up for themselves. So that's what my blog is about. And I'm just trying to advocate for those that can't advocate for themselves. I was very blessed to have a husband who was willing to advocate for me, parents who were willing to come into town and advocate for me. My best friend came in from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and spent 2 weeks taking care of my family and advocating with my doctors. When I couldn't speak, she spoke for me, did my makeup for me. I mean, I've just been very blessed, and not everybody has that resource. So that's what I do. I'm not allowed to work full-time anymore, so I volunteer in the writing community, and I volunteer with these different areas where I can lend a voice for those who don't have a voice. So unless there's another pressing question, I'm going to wrap up our time together. 45 minutes. Thanks for hanging out with me, y'all. I hope this was the 3 E's I shoot for. I try to be encouraging, I try to be educational, and I try to be entertaining. So I don't know how entertaining I was tonight, but I think I was educational. And if that helps you out, and if you want to share this information with others, now you have the tools to do so. So, oh, I just wanted to share too. This is the mini gizmo. In the Kickstarter, it says a mini gizmo. This is what it is, and then we're going to have a customized purple collar to go on it. So if you sign up at that level, but it's Gizmo's favorite toy. So Gizmo, come. I have to figure out how to turn the camera around, guys. Did I do it? I don't think so. Here you go. Wait. Oh, I don't know how to turn it around. I am sorry. Can we see Gizmo playing there? Hey, he's got his mini-me. So, okay, I know that's not ideal, but I'll figure it out for next time. Gizmo, come say hi. Say hi to the people. Look right here. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to say goodbye, and hope to see you soon.